Pues le damos ya. Vale. Hola, buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos al Madrid Innovation Lab, que como sabéis es un centro del Ayuntamiento de Madrid para potenciar las nuevas tecnologías y la inteligencia artificial. Hoy tenemos la suerte de contar con Tapio Rosenius, de la startup Skandal. Que además nos encanta porque es un caso que utiliza la inteligencia artificial junto, yo lo diría, con el arte, para crear experiencias físicas y digitales. Y bueno, pues muchísimas gracias por estar aquí hoy con nosotros. Y como sabéis, podéis, los que estáis aquí, preguntar a lo largo de la sesión, los que estáis online a través del canal de YouTube. Y bueno, pues damos comienzo a la sesión. Muchísimas gracias.
And now? Tech check.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So if we missed the first bit because of the mic, so we develop solutions for purpose of influencing human experience and behavior in built environment. We do it through a concept called ambient communication. This is something we've been researching several years now, and it's based on this core principle: creating spaces capable of sensing and responding to people or events to create engaging and informative environments. Basically, intelligent environment responds to you, responds to the context, responds to time, and helps human in space. That's what this boils down to. Big part of ambient communication is how does the information actually arrive to human. So we all know we have a powerful peripheral vision, and we have also the sort of focal point vision, which is called attentive processing, that's described here. So most of the time you utilize attentive processing a lot, like right now. So you're trying to focus on something, you're trying to learn new things. This is the bit that goes to the frontal cortex part of your brain. It's exhausting, it demands a lot of energy from you, and that's why we're all very tired in the evenings. A lot of technology development currently is focused on that. So we fight for people's attention. The idea of ambient communication is the polar opposite. So it is the pre-attentive processing, basically the peripheral vision, that we serve the information to. And we serve it in a very calm manner, and we do it with things like light. Now, this works only if you understand the kind of basics of behavioral psychology and behavioral science, and things like, you know, the hierarchy of focal accents, which basically means where does your eye go when you enter a new space before your conscious mind tells you to look somewhere. So it's very much about this sort of involuntary behavior of our biology and our psychology. And what you see there is that the number one, for example, is always people. So we always notice people when you come in, but the number two is already movement, then it's brightness, contrast, color, pattern. So basically by manipulating these elements, movement, brightness, contrast, color, pattern, we know we can draw human attention in some ways, but also we know we can serve information to them. So that's essentially what we're doing. And what that is leading to is this idea of engaging spaces. So, you know, we have things like positioning the environment. So it becomes a reference for locals and tourists. We attract people by using these technologies. We increase the footfall. We create intrigue. When there's intrigue, that increases dwell time. People spend more time in the space. We allow them to interact. Interaction then provides a lot of metrics, data collection, things like that, which are very beneficial for everybody involved. And then in the end, we also allow them to share. So suddenly, through the means of ambient communication, human psychology, behavior science, we know how to begin to build an engaging space. What we have done, our magic formula, the secret sauce, is that we've sort of systemized this with technology. So I will later on show you our technology, how we're doing this. And the way it works is that essentially we collect data, so we understand where the people are, what they're doing, what time of the day it is, if it's raining outside, etc. We convert those data points into visual content. That can be lighting, that can be sound, that can be video screens, projections, anything that's sensorial in any environment, and then we push them out into the environment through various kinds of displays. But it's not linear. So I put this video here just to kind of try to explain this idea that it's very much constantly evolving, kind of like a data mesh. So the cybernetic loop, people call it. So there's constantly new pieces of information coming, constantly analyzed, and constantly served into the space. And this is the bit where we obviously then begin to utilize things like artificial intelligence and other types of algorithms to allow us to automatically change that environment. Now, this is the most complex part of the speech. It's going to start getting a little bit more understandable anytime soon. But you get the principle, is that it's ever-evolving, ever-changing environment that's achieved through data, basically, data collection, and understanding of human psychology and behavior science. This now shows you very, very quickly what it can mean. So these are the outputs, for example. So there's projection surfaces, there's lighting, there's sound, possibly even scent, indirect lighting, screens, digital signage. All these different elements in the space are currently being changed and shifted because of data input coming in, of people entering. Those data inputs can be anything from number of people to gender to density, time of the day, the noise levels there, maybe it's a special event or other calendar event, maybe it's snowing outside, maybe there's a traffic jam, etc., etc. So very sort of unpredictable real-time events that relate to practically any part of built environment. You analyze them, you turn them into visual content. You end up with the same space with very distinct experiences because of the data points. So nothing else changes here other than the content. So we have a single person entering the space, maybe we have two people entering the space, maybe we have more than two people entering the space. This could be simply a bunch of children entering the space, a lonely middle-aged man entering the space, or nobody in the space. So the space becomes very, very, very responsive, very intelligent, and very contextual. That's the kind of the end result. Now, how to then use this? What are the sort of meaningful, real-time, real-world benefits? So imagine here you are, for example, in your workplace, you're in your office. So we create ambient awareness. So ambient communication allows ambient awareness. What that means is that you don't need to think about something. You don't need to pay attention to particular kind of information. You just know. It's just very intuitive. Something changes, you understand why it changed. So you're there thinking about your things. There's a meeting starting. So the wall on the left turns blue. You don't need to look left because it's peripheral vision. So you'll just sense a change here. And you intuitively know that means that, I have a meeting because it's blue. And it's a learned behavior. If it was red, maybe there's a fire. So blue means meeting, red means run out. So it turns blue, and then a little shadow moves across, and that means, well, the meeting starts in 1 minute. You stand up, you go to the meeting. Nothing alerted you, you didn't need to read your calendar, you didn't need to do anything. You just sensed it. Now that can then turn into interesting kind of other scenarios. So let's say you're on the top level there, and the downstairs canteen. It's lunchtime, so suddenly we start getting data inputs to this space. And those data inputs can be very kind of sensible things like lunchtime, data input 2, it's the windy autumn day, so maybe you need to step outside before you go to the restaurant, so take a jacket. And the data input 3, for example, queuing time is less than 3 minutes, because we are measuring the queuing time downstairs. What does that mean in practice? This guy is sitting here, it's lunchtime, now he knows when the projection comes, he knows it's autumn, it's windy outside, now's a good time to go, because the queuing time is less than 3 minutes. That information just came in without him reading anything, without him paying attention to anything. He just knows all those things. The benefit is that, let's say, in a course of a day, with few of these kinds of things in your workplace, we manage to save 10 minutes of your time. If that's 10 minutes every working day, that's roughly about 2,080 minutes per year, which is full 4 working days. Time saved. Let's say, hypothetically, that there's 750 people working in the office building, and we have a 33% success rate of actually influencing people positively like this, so we save 10 minutes from 33%, not all of them, 33. That translates to about 250 people being assisted. That's 1,000 man days saved per year, just because of this little nudge. What's the value of that? How much does that cost? So you see the scalability, and they're tiny, tiny incremental changes. So how the environment just makes every day a little bit more seamless. We call it reducing cognitive load, so we don't ask anything from you. And we save 10 minutes of your time. Now, it can then look something like this. So this is a real case, real office, real workplace in Zurich. And it can have a very beautiful aesthetic as well. So all the elements you see here, all the kind of shifts of lighting, for example, this blue wave is following the wind speeds of Zurich. This is in the lakes of Zurich. This movement here depends on the noise levels in the office. This is an open plan office. So if it gets very noisy, this gets very agitated. So it acts as an ambient communicator saying, shh, it's an open plan office. And it's interactive. So to show off, you can play around with it. You can take this is a way to the meeting room, so you take the guests through that and check this out and so and so and so forth. It's absolutely different every single day because it depends on the temperature, the season, how many people there are, and all the rest of it. So it's ever-changing, ever-shifting ambient communication environment. And it's an office. And it's a nice office. It's nice to work there, right? It can also take this kind of aesthetic. So this is it's a data sculpture. So these shadows moving here represent the people inside the office. So we have indoor positioning linked to the system here. And when you walk in one hand, it acts as a sort of narrative element. It says, this is us. We are data. It's a software company. All the movements you see represents us, but it also gives you a little glimpse of where the people are. So the density of the shadows and everything else is associated with the different amounts of people in different levels of the building. So again, very, very quickly, in a very abstract way, you get a sort of glimpse. Is it busy? Is it quiet? 7th floor is full of people, there's an event, etc. So they can act like that. Now there's another dimension to this then. I'll show you a little video. So this is a very, very classic example of something called the fun theory, which is about nudging, it's about driving positive behavior. So what can we do, again, for example, in a workplace, using ambient communication, using these kinds of techniques? So in this case, they turned a subway station staircase into a piano and filmed it for a few days, basically studied what happened, and the end result was that 66% more people chose the stairs over the escalator because it was more fun, right? So you're driving behavior with a very simple intervention. So just because there was something different there. Now how can we, let's say, draw that kind of thinking into workplace through ambient communication? So currently we have 2 projects going where we're doing something like this, where we are applying data and lighting and media to create a staircase that basically seeks to motivate people to use the staircase as a group. So it's about them, the team, us. So for example, our team today has burned this many calories. Our team this week has taken this many steps. You can translate the number of steps taken to life extended is about 4 seconds. So every time you climb stairs, every step extends your life by 4 seconds. It's a famous study from 1982. So you can save energy because you're not using the lift, right? And all this then comes in as data, as information, so you end up gamifying. So you gamify the experience of taking the stairs, as simple as that. Now, again, that seems kind of maybe a little bit gimmicky, possibly slightly trivial, but let's say you have an office building, and let's look at it again. You have the 750 people there. On average, there's about 6 trips per day, so you come in, you go for lunch, maybe you have a meeting on the 3rd floor. So that translates to about 4,500 trips per day. Let's say 15% of these trips is then encouraged to use the stairs. That would be 675 per day. Average steps taken per trip, roughly about 30, so that's over 20,000 steps per day, based on the 15% of people actually being encouraged to use the stair instead of lift. So you burn calories, about 3,500 as collectively as a team. But this is the interesting bit. Your team life is then cumulatively extended roughly about 22.5 days per day. Right? That translates to 12.8 years per year as a team. Because 15% of the elevator trips are now taken by stairs. So it's dramatic. So these tiny little incremental behavioral changes, for example in a workplace, translates to this. Now if you're a real estate developer, or let's say you're a building operator or a corporate and you have to make a choice between this building and that building. This building has been proven to extend the life of your workforce by 12.8 years per year, and this other building has not. Which building would you rent? So the tiny, tiny incremental changes that affect potentially creating absolutely dramatic changes, and also you're using, your lift usage is reduced by 50%, so there's a direct energy saving there. So all this boils down to this famous concept of nudge. So nudge is it's from behavioral psychology, behavioral science. So it's something called choice architecture. So it alters people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any options. So it's entirely voluntary. So the intervention must be easy to avoid. So no one's forcing you to take the stair. You can always take the lift. You always have the choice. This is not dictatorship. So nudges are not mandates, and that's where the power lies. So they're just intuitive, easy, sort of cognitively quick to understand choices. And our part of this is that we are automating it, we're making it real time, and we're making it data-based, right? Real-time data-based nudging. Now, another dimension then to the ambient communication is that we can also communicate not so much in a kind of human level, like let's say in the workplace, but also in a kind of urbanistic level. So this comes down to then to the smart city. So how building begins to communicate in an abstract way in a city context. So we've done quite a lot of projects, and our technology has been used quite a lot in various kinds of responsive real-time media facades, for example, which can take various different forms. So this building here responds again to different weather patterns. So it might be going like that if it's like a calm day in Geneva, just beautiful white light flickering across. And then when there's a special event, let's say Football World Cup and Switzerland scores, the entire building turns into a Swiss flag. This is a real case. That's exactly what they did. In that match when Switzerland won Spain in the first World Cup, that's what they did. This was a project we did in Madrid some years ago. This is more about sort of drawing attention to the new entrance to the hotel. It's done in a very artistic way, but it also has sort of communicative dimensions to it. This is a project in Cairo where it's very sort of geographic, about the shape of the building, and very much about the volumetrics, and again, creating an icon. So we are communicating in an urban scale, and it can take so many different forms. This is a project in Barcelona you might have recognized, currently in a concept stage, so where we're exploring possibilities of rejuvenating this particular icon and turning it into the world's most advanced media facade with artificial intelligence and real-time graphics and real-time responsiveness and all the rest of it, which then allows kind of a new lease of life to that particular feature in the city, and creates a lot of different kinds of opportunities for the owner. So you begin to see the kind of different benefits. This is a bank headquarters in Tbilisi in Georgia, which is almost ready now. In here, the idea is to communicate things like market forces, how stock options are moving, because that's their business. This is one of the Qatar stadiums for the World Cup. We worked in 3-4 of them. And the idea here is that the building lives with the match. So we are always part of that emotion that's inside the bowl, and we're sort of emitting it to the city. So it's an urban communicator. So we're following the match real time, we're taking the soundscape real time, and we're responding to it. And so on and so forth. From that, you can then go into something that we're calling experiential architecture. So in the smart city context and in an urban communication context, if you really kind of zoom out, this is in center of Sevilla. We created a light experience on top of the Setas Sevilla building. And when the lights come on in a macro scale, the people begin to move towards this urban object in the city. So you're driving human behavior in a very kind of macro scale, and it looks something like this. So it's highly immersive. We have cameras here, we have different kinds of sensors in place, we have data harvesting, and what that means in practice is that all these light patterns that you see in these colors, they're calculated in real time all the time, so every evening is a little bit different. The seasons are different, a lot of special days, if it's Halloween or so on and so forth. So in other words, it's worth going more than once. There are interactive points there, you can play around with the lights and they respond to you, etc., etc. But what's maybe the most interesting part of it is that it's an open platform. So our software allows this to live for years to come. It's always easy to update, it's always easy to reinvent and repurpose for different kinds of purposes. So I think that's probably the largest value of it. And since then, the benefits achieved is things like it's a new digital infrastructure that enables things like immersive experience and extended opening hours. So important thing is that word digital infrastructure. Because if you think in an architectural context, it's very, very difficult to change infrastructure once it's there. But when the infrastructure becomes digital and when it gets backed up by things like AI and other types of automatations, then suddenly it's infinitely malleable, it's entirely flexible, it's fluid, right? There is remote management, so it's very easy to update, and you don't need on-site personnel for that purpose. So right now this is managed from Madrid, the project is in Sevilla, but equally we have projects like this in Helsinki, in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't really matter. Sensing and data harvesting then triggers the real-time non-repeating visual experiences. So again, there is this element of data income, data analysis, and kind of automation. So things happen without human intervention, making it very easy. And there's been roughly about 500,000 paying visitors since the opening. That number is probably outdated by now. The owner is Sasir, our client here was Sasir, exceptionally good client, and very kind of visionary because they had the courage to go for something like this, and it's been a great success. So our technology then, so what do we do? So to achieve all this whole concept that I've been talking about, first you need to sense. So you need to understand what's going on. So anything from CO2 to temperatures to people movements to anything else that's meaningful in that particular context, you then generate the outcomes, generate the content, and then you send it out. And that sending out can be anything from lighting to projections to sounds to data. So also you collect data and you send data out. And our platform looks like this. So we have a software, it's called Poet, and it allows you to do the entire design process, pre-visualizations, the interactivity. There's a digital twin idea integrated in there, and in the same platform where you design and deploy, you also manage, remote manage. So what we then solve as a problem when it comes to smart spaces is that right now many smart spaces can't sense certain things, and that can come out as information. They usually create some kind of very nice dashboards and things, but it's very, very difficult to act on it immediately in real time. So we close that loop. So from that information coming in, we generate new content, new space, we seek to change the behavior within the environment, and we sense again, inform, generate, change again, and this cybernetic loop continues. We also solve quite a few technical issues, like the fact that the various control systems are very fragmented, so it's incredibly difficult to make them work in unison. We bring them all together under one platform, open platform, which is called the Poet, and that simplifies the overall building management tremendously. The data inputs, for example, so sensor networks, things like cloud and data harvesting, we integrate with AWS, for example. We take inputs from BMS and various kinds of overrides. We take 3D information, LiDAR information, cameras, and so on and so forth. We send it out as LED lighting and projections, the LED screens, digital signage, sound, and data to clients. So everything comes into one platform. The client benefits includes things like increasing the asset value, automating experiences, influencing human behavior, as you've seen those little nudges, how dramatic they can be when they get scaled, and they can even earn revenue from the system, like is the case of Sedas de Sevilla. So really the imagination is the limit here. The way we deliver these things is always in three parts. So there is the software, that's the core of everything, services and hardware. The software is our Poet software, which is the open platform. Services include the creative design, solution integration, operation, and so on and so forth. We call these things digital physical environments, so the service packages are relatively specialist. And then we take care of the necessary hardware. But Skandal Technology is not a hardware company. It's really a software company. Hardware is quite easy to procure from the market, so we're very agnostic about that. And we have a very experienced leadership team. We're based here in Madrid. So everybody in the leadership team has more than 20 years of experience in this field. So we've been there, done that, identified a lot of the problems that we're now trying to solve, and lived through the frustrations. So we think we're quite uniquely positioned to service this kind of intervention. So that's what separates us. And yeah, we're in Calle Hierro, Barrio de las Meses. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Hay una pregunta en la que comentan cómo se puede comenzar este tipo de proyectos con la experiencia de empleado en el propio edificio, ¿no? ¿Cómo organizar, ¿no? esa primera parte para contactar con vosotros y empezar un proyecto?
What we do to start with, usually, almost always, is something we call the foreshadowing workshop. So to start the project with us is is a low entry barrier. So it's a low cost workshop where we start mapping out the actual problems, the goals, the constraints that there might be in the building, and then the various kind of benefits that we can pinpoint and go after. So that's the most effective way. It's literally a 4-hour workshop. The outcome of that is essentially kind of a co-design session with the key stakeholders, and the outcome is a report on what could ambient communication do to help the client's problem. And this can be something where we study the entire portfolio of a real estate developer, or it might be a new HQ for a corporate company, and that's how we start, and it's the most effective way.
Okay, in relation with the stakeholders, usually it should be HR. Who more are normally involved on those?
It depends on the company, but in workplace, for example, the case of workplace is people who are responsible for the workplace transformation. Quite often we talk to the chief investment officers of real estate companies. So it's quite sort of exec level, the first step. Innovation leaders in general, they are the best people for us to talk to. So in terms of starting, that's the most effective, and then from there, obviously we will then involve facility managers and various kinds of design directors and more the technical teams, and we'll integrate with them very well. But really, what this needs to work, it needs quite visionary client side as well, and you need to be ready to explore quite open-mindedly the future, basically. What is the future of workplace? What is the future of urban environments? What is the future of experiences? What is the future of retail? And I think that's basically where we begin to add value.
Thank you very much. There is another question, and it is in relation after the implementation, how to evolve the content or the experience and so on. If it is something that you do work together, or how it is managed.
Yeah, so we offer content management. So basically a remote content management as a service. So in the larger projects, we might have 2 to 5 year content management contracts with the clients. Or equally, we just train their own staff, and they can then operate the platform and do the content. I mean, one of the core ideas and values of the Poet platform is that the content management and updates is easy, because it's a very well recognized problem in our industry is how do you handle content? Like refreshing content, it's usually quite tedious, usually quite expensive. And because we are automating, so we're using real-time data that comes automatically, we use algorithms to create the visual outcome, so that happens automatically. So the process of actually creating those visuals, the kind of things that you've seen here, is surprisingly easy.
I think that also it depends, the evolution, it depends also in the goals, those goals that are defined at the beginning in the behavioral changes, that also be included in that evolution.
Exactly, and the thing about this is that it's a form of sort of mass customization. So the platform always remains always the same. You don't need to change the platform. But by the time you've changed the data inputs to be contextual, to be client-specific, to basically serve the client's needs, and you then connect those client-specific data inputs to client-specific content generators, then the outcome is completely unique every time. So every client can be entirely unique, and every day can be entirely unique. But platform doesn't change. The tech remains exactly the same in all of them. So there is that mass customization principle and philosophy behind all this.
Well, there is no more questions. So thank you very much for the presentation. Everyone has the way to connect with you, Tapio, and the company. And well, it is really a great solution to change experiences. And then, well, we are in touch. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Bueno, 35 minutos.
5 minutes over.